recorded and will be cut
Okay.
in the middle.
Let's just create an absolute silence for like 10 seconds.
Why?
Why not? Come on. Hey, thanks, that was really cool.
You want to hear the sounds of ventilation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so does anyone have like a good joke? I actually heard one about Java and JavaScript. Java is to JavaScript as car is to carpet. Excuse me?
Is the joke applicable to Python 2 and Python 3 comparison?
No. Just by the way, who was on the yesterday's presentation about Dev Assistant? Okay, so a couple of guys. Okay, no free beers today. Okay.
So you maybe already know that there's a whiteboard with the lightning talks, so I should encourage you to propose your talk if you have any idea, and then later on vote for them. Yeah. And the most popular talks will be picked, and schedule of lightning talks will be created 1 hour before the lightning talk. So. And now Slávek, Kabrda, and Python 3.
Okay, thanks. So thanks everyone for coming. I'm really glad that I see so many people here and that you've all come to learn something about Python 3. Let me ask you a few questions for the start. So who of you is a Python developer? Python 2 or 3? Okay, that's quite a lot. So who knows Python 3? Okay. Who thinks that he knows Python 3, he or she knows Python 3 really well? Okay, cool. You may actually get a few beer for that, guys. Okay, so during this presentation, I would really like to say why I think that Python 3 is a better language and why we should all just move to it and leave the past behind. And I will tell you something about migration, something about plans for Python in Fedora, and maybe something else too. So what if I told you that there is something better than Python 2? I know that some people still think that it is a blasphemy to say something like that, but I really do think that Python 3 is better. So I've already said that we will go through what Python 3 is. I'll go through what's new. I'll tell you something about porting, about how we maybe not will have Python 3 as default in Fedora 22, and then we can have like question and answers and discussions and whatever. So what is Python 3? This is my favorite quote from Nick Coughlin. I don't know if you know who Nick is, but he's like one of the main Python core devs. And so he says that Python 3 is the programming language that the creators of Python 2 prefer to use. That should say something, right? That's like... So Python 3 is also known as Python 3000 or Py3k. It is not fully compatible with Python 2, but you can write code that runs on both, right? I know that there are people constantly saying that this is not possible, but I personally have ported like dozens of upstreams, and I haven't yet seen a single project that wouldn't be able to do that, right? It's just...
Write Python that also runs in Perl at the same time.
Excuse me?
You can also write code that runs in Perl and C at the same time, so that's not...
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, that's an interesting point. You can really do that?
Yes, it's called polyglot.
That's scary. Okay, so Python 3 is more Pythonic. By saying more Pythonic, I mean it's very consistent, right? Like lots of redundancies and inconsistencies were removed, and there were some renames, and everything is like really consistent with everything else, and it's like really well designed language at this point, I think. And also Python 3 is the present and future of the Python language. Python 2.7 is the last Python of the 2 series. It's supposed to be supported by upstream up until 2020, I think, but there is not going to be any 2.8 release. So Python 2.7 is done. And Python 3 is that future. And I know that like some people have been saying like that Python 3 is too new to port to, and that is like untested and unstable. And I'm like, okay, it's been around only for like 6 years. Really unstable, untested? No. So usually when people talk about like why you should port to Python 3, they take the approach that they first say why you should use Python 3, and then they mention, okay, so there are some differences, and you know there's porting, blah blah blah. And I actually usually take the different approach. I first scare you, and then I will tell you why you should move to Python 3. By the way, the doors are locked, so you can't run away right now. So I can scare you right away. So print is no longer a statement. This is like a really simple change, but it's actually like where most of the people like say, I'm not going to use Python 3. I can't use print as a statement. I need to include the parentheses around what I want to print. I mean, come on, people, really?
I mean, I use print with parentheses in Python 2 too, because I prefer it.
Yes, you can use print with parentheses in Python 2, but unless you use the future import, it's actually parsed as a print statement used on like an expression that has parentheses around it, right? So it's like something a bit different, and actually the print function provides some to the print function in Python 3. And if you do this import in Python 2, you can like say, I want the line to end with not new line, but for example, like X and new line or something. So it's like it works like a bit differently than in Python 2, right? So yeah, you can just write this and like okay. There are some differences in how dictionaries are handled. So basically, the first difference is that there is no haskey method. This has been replaced by the key in and then the dictionary. Python 2 used to have these iter something, and these are now only something, right? For keys, values, and items, that is. So iter keys is now only dict.keys, iter values is only dict.values, and so on and so on. In Python 2, these return iterators. In Python 3, these return dictionary views, which are for the most part iterators, but they have some like bit different properties, but you can just use them as iterators. And in Python 2, the dict.keys or values or items actually return lists. So if you want to emulate that behavior in Python 3, you have to explicitly call list on the iterator. right? To create a list out of it. And this is like one of the conceptual changes to the language. I may talk about it more later. That basically lots of the built-in functions like map or zip that used to return lists in Python 2 now returns iterators. So if you want to really get lists out of them, you need to wrap them in the list column. But again, it's like you can do that, right? It's nothing that would be like rocket science. Are there any questions for this? I would probably say that the hardest part usually when porting is getting the strings right. So in Python 3, the base string type no longer exists. Basically, the base string type was the super type of string and Unicode in Python 2. And in Python 3, string has been replaced by bytes type, and Unicode is now string, which is a bit confusing. But I actually think it's much better how Python 3 does it. When I first started creating my first Django project, like I don't know how many years ago, I still remember how confusing it was for me that Python has like string and Unicode. It was Python 2.6 at the time. And I just tried assigning like a Unicode literal to a string variable. And it worked. So what actually do you need Unicode literals in Python 2 for? And the details are that basically the Python 2 string type is really kind of like a polymorphic. It hides basically everything from you, and it's like you can also have like byte string that is like binary data inside the string type, and you can also have like encoded Unicode, and if you assign a Unicode literal to it, it just like does something with it, and it's like something that I will probably tell my children to scare them if I want to scare them. Like really, you don't want to know the details. In Python 3, this is super clear. You have bytes. Bytes are basically binary data. It can be like a binary that you read, or it can be an encoded text with, I don't know, UTF-8 encoded text, but it's still bytes. Then you can decode this text to string, and then it's Unicode. That's it. But you usually, with Python 3, you usually have to do like a careful decision when you design your system. You have to really decide carefully what you want to be Unicode and what you want to be bytes, right? Another small change in types is that the long and int types from Python 2 have been unified, so there's now just int type. Any questions up until now? Okay. Yeah, I've already touched this before. Map, filter, and zip return iterators in Python 3. And range and xrange from Python 2. Range returned list and xrange returned an iterator. There's now only range and it returns an iterator in Python 3. Okay, there's this old syntax from Python 2.1 or something, except my exception, comma, foo. This is no longer used in Python 3. It's a syntax error in Python 3, and you need to write except my exception as foo. But actually, this also works exactly the same in Python 2.7, 2.6, and maybe even 2.5. I'm not sure. So, like, if you're porting to Python 2.6 and above, you can just use the second syntax, and you're done with it. Imports in Python 3 are always absolute. That means that if you have an import inside your package, and your package, for example, has a file, has a module named subprocess, and you try to import subprocess, in Python 3 that will still import the library file. whereas in Python 2 it would have imported the subprocess module from your package, right? So if you want to emulate this in Python 2.6 and above, you can use relative import from dot import subprocess, for example. Did I make that clear? Okay, some people are nodding, so I guess so. Is there someone who didn't understand that? Good. And there's more. There have been renamed and split libraries. Config parser has been renamed. There has been some splitting in URL lib. The IO library has been completely rewritten in C, so it's much faster in Python 3. There is no compare function, the CMP. You should actually just use the rich comparison operators, so like equal, less than equal, and stuff like that. There is no backticks around something. You have to use the wrapper function. The backticks, I don't know if you know them. I actually didn't know them like half a year ago when I was first preparing a presentation like this. I found out that you could actually do that in Python 2. And what this does is that it returns a representation of the object, like if you call the wrapper function on it. So that's no longer available. There have been some changes in C bindings, and I've already been through the changes in iterators. So right now you might be saying, I'm really not sure if this is all worth the effort. Like, it will take me some work. I'm not saying it won't, right? It takes some effort to port to Python 3. But when we will finally be able to throw Python 2 behind, and we will be able to use all the new features of Python 3, it will really be worth it. Trust me. So what's new? AKA Python 3 goodies. Keyword-only arguments. This is my favorite, and this slide is a bit complicated, so I'll walk through it really carefully. And if you don't understand at some point, please stop me and ask a question, okay? So let's say we have a function that is called foo, and it takes 4 arguments. I'm talking about the first line, and it's like a Python 2, how I would do that in Python 2. So we have a function foo that takes A and B arguments, and it also takes beep and explode. If you pass beep something that is true, then it will beep. If you pass explode something that is true, you don't want to be around when someone runs it. So you can call it like foo with arguments 1, 2, and true. Okay? That's easy. Now let's say there's a library that provides this function, and the author of that library thinks that the explode argument is actually very useful, so he might actually move it before the beep argument. You know what will happen? Your beeping script no longer beeps. So this is really dangerous. I mean, things like this happen in Python too. They do. I've run into a few of these changes in the libraries I've used in my projects. So basically, someone swapped the arguments and suddenly it started failing, and I really didn't know why. So in Python 3, there's this feature called keyword-only arguments. So if you look at the function definition, there's a star between AB and beep and explode. And the star itself doesn't actually eat any of the arguments that someone passes to the function, but it says to the language parser, from now on, all the arguments have to be passed by keyword. So you can't pass beep or explode just as true. It will raise a type error. That's the line foo 1, 2, true, and that raises a type error in Python 3 if you define the function like this. Question?
Can you leave out the default value in Python 3 for
Excuse me?
arguments? Can you leave out the default value then for the keyword arguments? Like, can you just write A, B, star?
Yeah.
and explode.
So the question is whether I can leave out the default value for keyword-only arguments in Python 3. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not sure, but I think so.
Okay.
Oh?
How does Python 3 works if you don't specify the star here? Will it behave with all the like Python 2?
Yes. If you don't specify the star, it will work exactly as it did in Python 2, right? But if you use the star, no one is actually able to use this function just by passing it 1, 2, and true. People have to explicitly specify that they want to beep and not explode, which is usually a good thing, right? And so this prevents accidental passing of more arguments, like, say, for example, in functions that also accept like arbitrary number of arguments. This can get really dangerous. This prevents errors when reordering arguments, and so the way to actually work around this in Python 2 would be that you would say that you only accept the double asterisk keyword args, right? That you do in Python 2 methods, and then in the function body you would actually look inside the dictionary, and you would see if there's beep or explode, but that's like a workaround, and if it's solved systematically in the language, I think it's a great addition. Question?
What would happen if I would write the definition of the function AB and the star and then use the star args? Is it an error, like a semantics error?
The star args, I think that's an error. I honestly, the thing is that everything I need to write needs to be Python 2 compatible, so I never really get to use this myself, so I'm not completely sure, I admit. But that's why we need to, leave Python 2 behind and use this. I mean, it's awesome. Is it awesome?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Chained exceptions. This is another cool feature of the language. There's been an extended syntax that you can use in Python 3 only, and it says raise some exception from another exception. And what this does is basically that this stores the original exception E in the newly raised some exception. And basically, when you later in your program catch some exception, you can access E as an argument that's called, I think, _cause or something like that. So you can actually, store the original exception. And so in Python 2, how would you do that, right? There are some libraries that try to work around it, like storing the original exceptions and re-raising new exceptions, and it's all you don't want to really do that. You just want to raise some exception from another exception, and that's it. That easy, useful. Questions? Okay. Is this cool?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Thanks. Advanced unpacking. Another really, really cool feature. So there is some unpacking in Python 2, but these two examples wouldn't really work. So you can, if you have a file open and you're interested in the first line and the last line, and the rest you don't really care about, you can just do it as I did it in the first point on the slide. You just say the first, something, and last, and it works. Or you can do what's in the other bullet point. It's 0 to 8 and 9, and expand the range iterator to these variables. So you will get question?
It doesn't save them remaining lines in star X.
It does.
Okay.
It's just like a throwaway variable that I named X because I'm not I could have named it I'm not interested in this variable or something like that. Okay.
Is there a way to just really scrap it and ignore it?
So the question is whether there's a way to scrap it and ignore it. I don't think so.
You can leave only asterisk.
You can listen. Okay, so maybe you can just leave the asterisk there. Okay, thanks. Okay.
What happens when there are two strings or two of those variables within strings?
I think you can't have two of those.
You will get type error.
Yeah, that's a type error. Yeah, because Python wouldn't know like how many.
I know, that's why I
Yeah, yeah. It's not a lot. Yeah. Matrix multiplication that is coming in Python 3.5, and I think this is also pretty cool. One interesting thing about it is that it won't actually be implemented in Python itself. It's just left as a syntax element for libraries that do want to implement matrix multiplications, like NumPy or SciPy or stuff like that. And I think it's really great that the Python upstream recognized that Python is being used more and more in scientific computing, so they just want to support that, so they add an operator for that. That's great, right? That's great, right? Come on! Type hinting, another new feature that is coming to Python 3.5. This is based on arbitrary type annotations that were added in 3.0. The specification of type hinting is still being worked on, and basically what you should be able to do is that you should be able, that there should be like a specific, like a specified way to, provide arguments and return values for functions. The thing to note, the very important thing to note here is that this won't be, for now, maybe never, checked in runtime by Python itself. This is left for documentation purposes. If someone reads that function, he will understand immediately what he should pass. It's good for documentation. And it's also left there for automatic checking tools, right? So like PyLint and stuff like that, they will be able to warn you that you may be passing something that the function doesn't really expect. So I think that's also pretty cool. Subgenerators. Who likes generators? Cool. I don't like them that much. So subgenerators, again, that is a newly introduced syntax. In generators, you are now able to write yield from. And what it does is that it basically starts yielding from that other generator, right? Or from an iterator, or from a list, or from something else that is uniterable, which is really useful if you like generators unlike me. And there's more. There's the async IO module. I really don't pretend to understand it, but I've seen the examples and they're really cool. It's like super complicated. I've been trying to get my head wrapped around that. I think people have been like really tweeting about not understanding async IO, but everyone really likes how it looks. There's the fault handler module, which actually I've been using really a lot, because it's like what fault handler does, that if you import it and run like fault handler start or enable or something, then when the Python interpreter has a seg fault, which I have quite a lot because I'm the Python maintainer and I debug all these things from time to time. So if there's a seg fault, Python will still print like some sort of truncated backtrace in the Python code. In Python 2, Python just seg faults and you have no way of knowing which line of your Python code triggered the seg fault. In Python 3, you import fault handler and it shows you. I really love this, really. There are new libraries, IP address and pathlib. These are basically, an effort to get stuff more object-oriented. Up until now, you had os.path.join, and you used strings, so now you have like objects that represent paths and directories and everything, and IP addresses. There's an enumeration type in Python 3.4. It was like, it felt so good when they added it. I was like, everything that Python 3 needs is an enumeration module, and like 2 weeks after I thought this, it was like, hey, here's a proposal for enumeration module for Python.
What exactly does it do? The enumeration?
So it contains, I think, like 2 types. There are two or maybe more basic enumeration types. There is like a standard enum, and there is like I think it's called integer enumeration. They work slightly differently. I don't really have the time to go through these right now, but I really recommend to check it out. It's really good. It's really good.
Basically, if you have instance of an enum, you can say if instance in enum, and it will return true or false depending on whatever it's exactly this instance.
That's the basic functionality. It, just enumerate. There are also fine-grained OS or subclasses, which can be really useful, like when you're programming some sort of low-level stuff, and you need to really see what that OS error is. Almost everything is an iterator. I've said that many times. There's no more funny comparisons. In Python 2, you could really like compare ABC and 42. You can't do that anymore in Python 3, and I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing, right? Right? Yeah, thank you. So that's great, right? I like this. So porting. When you want to port, I think I'm running out of time a bit, so I may start going faster, but I'll include the link to the slides on the last slide, so you can like take a picture of it or remember it or download it right now so you can go through it. What you need to do when you start porting is that you really need to decide if you want to keep backwards compatibility. And if yes, please don't go below Python 2.6. Is there anyone who still uses RHEL 5 or CentOS 5? Poor you. I'm sorry, guys. It's that has Python 2.4, and that's really tough to port to if you want to use Python 3.2. So and ideally port to 3.3. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just very hard. Okay. And ideally use 3.3 because that had some, stuff added that makes it easier to port. And as usual, good test coverage is a must. Who has good test coverage in their code? Well, I expected more raised hands. There are some useful tools. There are 2.2.3 and Python Modernize. What 2.2.3 does is that it moves your codes, like does the stuff that can be done mechanically, like automatically, and so basically takes your scripts and moves them to Python 3 without taking care of the backwards compatibility, while Python Modernize actually takes care of the backwards compatibility. So if you want to have your script compatible with both, you probably want to use Modernize. There is Python 6, which is like a really thin compatibility layer that you can use. It's really great when you need, to use some of these smoothed imports, and if you want to use iterators on dictionaries both in Python 2 and Python 3, and it's like 600 lines of code, one file, but really very useful. And there are also other tools like PyFlakes, Pep8, Pylin that have some sort of checks built in, and that can always help you with porting. This is just a random list of resources. Really, if you want to go through this, just download the presentation and click on the links. The last one is, I would say, the most important. It's my email address. So if you don't know something, you just contact me and I will tell you what to do. And actually the last but one is the presentation, so it's not on the last slide, but on this one. Okay, it's on my Fedora people space, so if you just go there, you will find it. Okay, so Fedora 22, Python 3 as a default, right? Or not? We just deferred Python 3 as a default to Fedora 23, and there is now a new change for Fedora 22, which is called, I think, Fedora Python 3 migration improvements, which basically says we are pretty much doing what we wanted to do anyway, but we are not calling it Python 3 as a default. When I switch to the next slide, I want you to all repeat what I say, okay? Everyone. Python 3 will do fine. Come on, say that. Python 3 will do fine. Everyone. Come on, people. Python 3 will do fine. Once more. Python 3 will do fine. Once again. Python 3 will do fine. Thanks. And now, I've heard you all, so if someone says that he will not work on Python 3,
what do you mean by being a default but not being a default?
Excuse me?
User bin Python, would it be Python 3 or Python 2?
I will get to it, okay? I will get to it. So, in Fedora, there's this, we have two types of application. One of them are libraries, and there are applications. Libraries are something that other libraries and applications import, and applications are something that users run. And so importing, for libraries, we basically have Python-something subpackage, so we only introduce Python 3-something, and for applications, we just switch them to Python 3 when we migrate something. So if there are some Fedora contributors, I guess there are few around here. So this is basically the easiest way to do it, and that's what we do.
What about things that are both libraries and applications? For example, Mercurial, you can use this as a tool?
That's a good point. There are packages that are both libraries and applications, and for those, there should basically be for example, Mercurial. So there should be Mercurial, which is almost like an empty package, maybe with just user bin hg, and it should depend on Python 3-Mercurial, which will basically ship all the files, and then there will also be Python-Mercurial. So people will still be able to use it in both Pythons, but by default you will use Mercurial on Python 3. Okay. Having Python 3 as default means we now prefer Python 3 for applications by the definition of application. We have almost gotten rid of Python 2 from Workstation Live CD, except of few small pieces of codes like Anaconda. We'll have Python 3 only in minimal cloud image and atomic host for Fedora 22. That's not changed. We are not dropping Python 2. We are not forcing people to write downstream only patches, and we are not pointing user bin Python to Python 3. Okay, so that's the answer to your question.
That means essentially that you need to have all Python 3 code backward.
I don't think it means that we would need to have the applications can be moved. The libraries have to be both compatible. Yeah. Helping out. For Fedora 23, obviously, we'll need your help again. We've really managed to port dozens of packages, mostly on the Workstation Live CD and all the stuff. It's pretty much done right now for Fedora 22 for cloud minimal image and the atomic host, but we'll continue working on server. There's still a lot of work to be done there, and So we'll create a list on one of the 2 pages that you see in the top. So if you want to help, just go to one of these pages and pick something and go porting. Or just port anything that's in Fedora and it's Python 2 only. We really will appreciate anything, even if it's not on live CD. Really, it's like any help is really welcome. And just remember, upstream is first. That's the way to do it. Just submit the patch to upstream and wait for them to approve and accept and release new version, and then rebase it in Fedora and switch to Python 3. I think this is my last but one slide. There's only one thing I really want to say today. People have been wondering why I've been doing all this, why I've been pushing so hard for Python 3, and there have been like several explanations. One of them is that I'm Python 3 terrorist. That's what someone told me. I'm not. Another one is that it's some kind of secret Red Hat effort to do something, take over the world and stuff. Not the case. Someone has said that I'm doing it all because I'm insane. While I'm not saying I am not insane, that's certainly not the reason why I'm doing this. And the last slide contains the reason why I'm doing this all. So, do you want to know that?
Yeah.
You do, right? Can you deny it, Python 3 as default? Okay. I think we may have like 1 minute for questions. One question.
When there will be a time to finally forget about Python 2?
Do you have like an easier one? I mean,
for example, if I will be a library maintainer, in which moment I can finally say, screw you guys, and will not support Python 2?
I think we are currently working on getting Python 3 to IPL, to Extended Packages for Enterprise Linux. So I think at the time when we get it there, you will be able to use basically on pretty much any distribution Python 3 version of library. So I would say it should be there in like about a month from now. So that can be the time. Okay. Hey, thanks. I'm afraid we're out of time. Sorry, Phil.
One more description.
Okay.
You are young masters of Python 3.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm David Somerset.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, fine.
Thanks a lot for the patches for my decode.
Yeah. We still need to push the NoVLR to actually build the clip XML, but yeah. He has the patch submitted too, so.
I would have had such a good question for the end.
Really?
Yeah. What's the roadmap for Python 4?
Really?
It will be Python 6.
Oh, right. That's true. 2 times 3 is 6. And it will be released after Christmas. Right.
Do you actually want to know the answer?
Python 4?
No. Python 4 will be the